Welcome back. A few days ago, I, 31 female, was unfaithful to my husband of almost 2 years. I want to make it clear that I have no excuses for my actions. What I did was foolish, self-centered, and I don't even understand why I did it. I have no excuses. A few days ago, I was intoxicated and alone in the house. My husband had taken yet another trip outside the state with a client of his. Before he went, we had a quarrel. I asked him not to go, as I had on all the previous occasions, but he had said no. He said he had to because it's his job. I've always resented the fact that he had to travel and be outside for so long so frequently. He would be gone about a week every 3 or 4 months' time. He didn't think there was anything wrong with it. He would get paid extra for each tour he took, got to stay in fancy hotels with everything paid for, and he always made sure he would take me on a few days long trip each time he got back. Besides, he would go on tours like this at best 5 times a year. So he always said I was making too much of this. This job pays really well and comes with a lot of benefits like discounted hotel packages, so we could vacation more frequently than most others. He pointed all these out every time I complained, but I still didn't like it. We were newly married, so I thought it improper of him to leave his bride at home for days at a time. When I brought up the fact, he arranged for my sister-in-law to stay home with me, but I didn't want sister-in-law, I wanted him. I grew up in an ultra-conservative household and never witnessed my dad ever leaving my mom at home like this. When I brought this up, he pointed out how my dad never got opportunities to travel for free either. Anyway, this day I was angry, so I went on a hookup site and arranged to meet a man. Despite knowing it was wrong, I allowed myself to go through with it. There was no emotional connection, and I didn't even find him that attractive. But he was considerably bigger than my husband down there, so I enjoyed being with him. We spent 2 days together in our house, on our marital bed, and everywhere else. Unfortunately for me, my neighbor had witnessed us. There's a by road around our house that ends up in my neighbor's house, and at one time we were on the kitchen counter and had forgotten to close the blinds. She had seen us through the window. She's a snoop and had known my husband had been away at the time, so she rushed to bombard my husband with the news. 2 days ago was when my husband was supposed to be back, but he never returned. I kept calling, but he never picked up or replied to any of my messages. He didn't even read them. I kept calling and texting frantically, fearing something had happened. Then yesterday night, he answered my call. I was so overcome with relief that he was still alive and unharmed. But then I got angry because he was supposed to be home, and I could hear music in the background and people chatter too. So I asked where he was. Had his trip been extended? When was he coming back? He was silent for a moment and then asked if I had sent the other man away. I was too shocked to answer. He said he'd be over when I've gotten rid of him to collect his things. He would be crashing over at his parents' place after that to clear his head. I was crying at this point and repeating over and over how sorry I was, but he didn't say anything more. It's now early morning, and I've been bawling my eyes out since the call. I've told him that I've already gotten rid of the other man so he can come by and we could talk, but he hasn't said anything back. He has still not been around. My in-laws are apparently well aware of the situation as well, so I can't contact them to ask for emotional support either. I'm so overcome with shame right now. Our intimate life at home is good, though not very experimental. And honestly, I'm not extremely bothered by that. I do not even know why I did what I did. I feel overwhelming guilt and self-disgust, and I didn't even enjoy it that much. I loathe myself for my actions, and I have no idea how I'm going to face my wonderful husband when he gets back. What shall I tell him? I'm prepared to beg at his feet if that'll make him give me another chance. What do I do? Update. So he came and we talked. I took your advice and prepared his favorite meal, but he took one look at it and looked disgusted, I think. I wanted to sit down and talk, but he wasn't interested. He was distant and cold. He simply said he's going over to his parents' house for a few days, and that I needed to find alternative lodging since he didn't think he'd be able to stay married to me after what I did. He said he was disappointed, hurt that it only took me 1 day without him to get another man in the sack. I tried telling him that I felt neglected and constantly unheard because he chose to travel despite my pleas, but he said I was crazy. Any other woman would consider it a great opportunity, and I was the only one hung up on it like this. So it's where we're at now. Hopefully we can overcome this as a unit. I do not want a divorce so early in my life. He's really the most perfect man, and I want to share my life with him and bear his children. Yes, I know how that sounds, but truly what I did was such a horrible mistake, and I'm so disgusted with myself, and I will never let this happen again. I've learnt my lesson all right. I'm just hoping and praying that he won't press for a divorce just yet. Comments. Apologies for repeating myself, but it would be beneficial if you returned the ring to him. Express to him that he holds a significant place in your heart, which makes it difficult for you to proceed with the marriage while being aware that you might potentially cause him pain in the future. Additionally, convey your desire to genuinely focus on self-improvement before making a long-term commitment to anyone again. Some people just aren't mature enough to handle serious relationships. You still have some growing up to do from the sounds of it. Don't blame your affair on him being away 5 weeks a year. If you want to be a hoe, then go do that. I don't know, it seems like you get off on misery and you probably somewhat enjoy the comments people are leaving. So, I don't know, you just sound like a shit human at the moment. Maybe you can change one day. You are repulsive, and your husband deserves a woman who's far superior to you in every way. I hope you would leave him so that he doesn't have to endure being stuck with someone like you for the next few years, until your self-esteem plummets and your relationship ultimately ends in divorce. Or I hope he uses his brain now and divorces you so he can be rid of you, then start fresh. Story 2. I deeply regret betraying my boyfriend, 29 male, whom I've been in a committed relationship with for over 2 years. I am overwhelmed with guilt and recognize that he's a loyal and wonderful person. However, I recently began experiencing thoughts that I no longer love him, although I'm unsure if these thoughts were merely intrusive. During this time, a new guy in my class started showing interest in me and flirting. Initially, I didn't mind. But eventually, I found myself becoming attracted to him, primarily in a sexual way. A few days later, he touched my back, and instead of stopping him, I allowed it to happen. Today, I decided to have a conversation with the new guy to make it clear that I'm happily committed to my boyfriend, and we agreed not to pursue anything further. However, when I got home, we ended up texting again. And eventually, we engaged in sexting and masturbated together during a video call. I am overwhelmed with intense remorse and have been crying uncontrollably. I'm at a loss for what to do, as I cannot bear the thought of losing my boyfriend. I'm unsure if I should confess everything to him, as it would only cause him pain. Please advise me on how I can find forgiveness within myself. It's important to acknowledge and take responsibility for your mistake, instead of crying and assuming the role of the victim. It's crucial to inform your boyfriend about what happened, as he deserves the truth. After sharing the truth, give him the space he needs to process the information and decide what he wants to do. Avoid gaslighting or manipulating him in any way. Remember, crying doesn't make you the victim in this situation. Comments. Your focus on how do I forgive myself is self-centered and selfish given the circumstances. It's not about relieving your own pain. The only way to alleviate your guilt is by being honest with your boyfriend. Keeping the truth hidden will only torment you internally. He deserves to know the truth so that he can make an informed decision about whether or not to forgive you. Ultimately, that decision is not yours to make. To begin with, there's a concern about the possibility of being recorded without your knowledge. In such a case, the need to disclose the situation may become irrelevant if the video were to go viral. Considering your young age, you may be too young to make a lifelong commitment at this stage. If your current relationship was truly fulfilling, the temptation to stray wouldn't hold such appeal. It might be time for you to focus on yourself and be independent. Teenage relationships can sometimes last, but the majority of them do not. It would be beneficial to give yourself time to explore life and learn from your experiences. Additionally, it's crucial to avoid engaging in risky behavior that could potentially resurface many years later and cause significant harm. We cannot dictate how you should find forgiveness within yourself. However, it's important to note that simply forgiving yourself may not be the most appropriate response in this situation. Instead, focus on learning from this experience and growing as an individual. It is crucial to inform your boyfriend about what happened and allow him to decide whether he wants to continue the relationship with you. Additionally, you should reflect on your own feelings and intentions. Based on your post and comments, it seems that you may have doubts about moving forward with your boyfriend. Take the time to consider your own desires and priorities before making any decisions.